Hello, Kasia. So good to be with you today. I'm really excited about today's conversation. Um, if it's okay with you, I'd like to talk to you about something on my heart and ask you some questions because I have a feeling that I'm not the only one in our community that's been experiencing this. Um, the deeper I dive into pranic living, and by that I mean returning more to my natural way, that of like when I was a child, enjoying being in nature and eating lots of fresh fruits and vegetables, I noticed that I felt like I've had a war inside between that which feels natural to me, that feels like ease and expansion, and then a lot of mind storm chatter. And some days are really good, and some days the mind storm seems to take over. And I was wondering if you have some tips or ideas or could speak to. I really want to live more in harmony with my true nature. Like, I want that to be my norm. And I know that, I've got years of it not being my norm. Um, but if you could just give some gentle guidance, wisdom on, yeah, on how to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hello, Alva. Hello, everyone. It's really wonderful to really connect with you. That's the first thing I want to really express, and it's amazing to really share what I feel is going to be supportive for more of you. And we've been discussing and wanting really to create videos for our pranic living group. So this is finally happening, and this is let's just say also that this video is just the starting point, that we will be co-creating and recording more videos. So we are looking forward to your feedback, suggestions, ideas, what is going to be supportive for all of you, and what really you require at this stage. So this topic, this question that you just asked, Alva, I feel it's going to support more of you, and it's going to resonate with more of you, because I actually I'm being asked those questions quite often. So why the mind sort of this kind of storms, why they appear, why they happen, why all of this? So what I would suggest is very important to recognize what is coming from the mind, from the limited I, the separate self. We can call in many different ways, but they're just words to describe. And also to recognize what is coming from our true nature, the true aspect of who we really are from the self, which is the real way of perceiving. So the limited I is, as even the name says, it's very limited. It's really impacted by the conditioning. And this is something really big and strong, that it's embodied very, very deeply in our physical body. And it's very closely connected, also impacted by our sensing. So all the senses that they have been present literally since the beginning, since we arrived on this planet. So the senses play a very big, very strong role. To even become aware of them, it's very important. How our sense of the visual, the sense of seeing, but also sense of hearing, touching, um, smelling, tasting is just so important. So what I would suggest when that storm arrives, so it's a bit similar like a storm in nature, yeah, when this black cloud, rainy cloud comes, uh, what do? We become first aware of it. Well, there is a storm coming, isn't it? So watch that storm like a black cloud in the sky. Become aware of it. So I would question who is experiencing, that storm that we feel, in the
Mm.
body. And that's the senses are involved, and quite often there are also emotions that come together with that storm. I would question who is experiencing that storm. Can the self ever experience storm like this? So I would go. I'm not sure if we have the time in this video, because we want to really create short videos and just focus on one topic. But it's very important to know really like how we perceive our true nature, our real aspect of who we really are is always at ease, at rest. It never lacks anything. There's always freedom. There is always uh, light and love and peace. It's not needing anything. It doesn't really require anything. It comes, we don't need to go like outside and search anything. If anything, it just comes to us.
Yeah.
So if there is anything that is not comfortable, that is not easy, if there is anything that is it feels like a storm. So even answering your question, if anything feels like a storm, can this be perceived by our true nature?
No, not for me. And hearing you say that, thank you for answering my question. I'm noticing two things in the body. So when I'm in the limited mind, I feel contraction in my body. In being present with you here, I also notice uh, upon reflection, when I'm in the limited mind, I'm in the past or the future. Because being here on the call
Totally.
with you right now, fully present, I feel expanded. And that's what I would say about my true nature. It feels expansive. It feels, if I just reflect, I'm going to go to the past for a moment, but in a beautiful way. When I reflect upon time playing with the grandsons, watching them who are steeped in their true nature, in our true nature, it feels just so spontaneous, so in the moment, you know what I mean? And they bring their whole selves to everything. I love watching them breathe because their whole body breathes. I love watching them laugh and squeal with joy. And even if we're like reading a story, that story time is something that we love. They're like fully present with me, like that whole time. So I love the way in which and it doesn't just have to be a mind storm, sitting with it. I'm like, oh, when I'm in the limited mind, uh, there's fear and anxiety. Like you said a word, needing. There's like, I need to know this. How do I do this? Or did I do something? So that automatically brings a sense of a little bit of struggle with it. And then I thought about when you were, I felt into, this is the other thing, and I'd love for you to speak to this. I feel my true nature. Limited mind is connected to my thought. That's it.
Yes.
Because I notice when I think, I'm like either in the future or I'm in the past. But if I'm coming from my center, the core of beingness, everything is provided. Like the answer is there before I even ask the question, if that makes sense. And
Totally.
so, would you
Totally.
say, talk to us a little bit about how that looks in everyday life? What ways that we can anchor more in our true self, and what does it look like if you're with family or friends, or you're at work where you have to go someplace, or on the phone with somebody, how to, how to live, like I said, more in harmony with our true nature, to experience that ease and abundance that is our.
Yeah, that's a great question because that's how we are experiencing life. Like we don't live in cages in jungles that we are not surrounded by people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So every one of us is involved in some kind of lifestyle, and of course with our family. Some of us perhaps have that environment that they can live in their own space, but probably not that many of us, I guess. So, what I would suggest, what always worked for me, is never rush with anything. There is, and I'm gonna just bring this saying, which I absolutely love, but it is, I mean, it literally is like this. If we bring our awareness to this present moment, we see this everywhere. Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished.
Mm,
I would not hurry even with responding to what people say to us.
mm,
Before we rush with saying anything, whatever someone would say to me, I would just take a moment so that it's not rushed. It's not reaction. It's not a reaction, but I would be able to respond. Because we can say, once we say something, we can't take it back. It's just gone. Yeah. So being really fully present in this moment allows us to really feel, like feel in our body, because the feeling is not thinking, is the feeling that is the new language that we will be communicating with now. Like this is, we need to get used to even. It's the feeling. The feeling is really communicating a lot. Do we feel at ease? Do we feel relaxed, at peace? Does this really feel like it resonates with us?
mm.
And just being, as you've mentioned, being fully present in this moment, everything is provided. We have that knowing that everything is already there. It actually doesn't need to be manifested. It's already there. Do we have access to it?
I do when I'm present. I don't when I'm popped up in the head. because then because, oh, that's such
Exactly.
beautiful, because when I pop in the head, um, it always thinks that something is incomplete or there's some kind of problem. Yeah, there's a separation. When I'm fully present, I'm
Yes.
connected to all of life.
Yes. And from the, yeah, and from that separation, like whenever we perceive something as the separation, there is going to be always lack. There is everything is based on fear.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting.
So recognizing, so like coming back to what I've mentioned before, recognizing the limited mind, the separate self, and our true nature, like the real self, it really is a huge part of it. It's a big thing, but also what is involved, what really impacts, and how it impacts our life when we perceive ourselves as the separate, as their separate self. That's a big topic.
Yeah, that's a huge topic. Um, there's a line in A Course in Miracles, I think it's lesson 325, and it basically says, the world reflects what I see. And if I'm coming from the limited self, I create an insane world. And when I'm coming from the real self, uh, it's a loving world. Like I'm in and
Yes.
I can say I can feel that in my body. Um, so if someone is new to this concept, right? Like, because most of us um, have been conditioned, as you said, and maybe we should talk about condition, because maybe some people aren't aware that in the first 8 years of our life, we absorb, not only from our parents, but from school, from if our families were religious, from our world, we absorb what's best for us, what's right for us, all from the outside in instead of the inside out. And so maybe you could speak to that a little bit, so that people know what the conditioning is, or how we perceive it. And then before we go, we have about 5 minutes left. We can talk about like how they could curiously practice. And the reason I feel like I'm pointing you, if I will, is because I used to be super serious and still more serious than I'd like to be, but I find that that's not helpful in like trying to in discerning my limited self and the natural self. And so I feel like there's a lot of seriousness in our world, and what we could all benefit from, as you say, traveling lightly, walking lightly, sitting lightly, being lightly. Okay, so two parts.
Yeah, wonderful. So let me respond to the first one, the conditioning. That's a huge aspect, really. As you've mentioned, it really happens in the first few several years of our life, and we have been conditioned by, quite often the first source is of course our family, but it goes much broader than that. It's also our education, it's our schools, our society, our religion. Like however we really explore this world. What I want to mention is something what I feel it's very important, because for many years I wasn't aware of that how we are conditioned is not something personal.
Yes.
And we should never take this personally, that because we did something or we didn't, This is how we are impacted in life. It actually is not. Of course, it played a very important role that I just appeared in this particular family, in this region of the country, or even in this country, in so that it speaks this language, it experienced this kind of religion and all that. If I was born somewhere else, the conditioning would be different. There would be still conditioning. It would be different. I would be impacted in different ways. You have experienced this, Alva, in a different
Yes.
way because your starting point on this planet was completely
Yes.
different. Yeah. However, quite often when I work with people, particularly individually, it's still surprising me that certain aspects are very similar. And I also know why some of you are coming to me, are connecting with me, because there are certain aspects that literally connect us. They are very similar. So that conditioning, just coming back to your question, it's something that we need to become aware of. That's really the first thing for us to recognize. Is the awareness is really the first step. So it's to be able to see that this is not our true nature. This is not something that our true nature would ever be acting, let's say, like this. So it's something that it puts this heaviness, it sort of brought the inner light that is always shining, it's always there, uh, to sort of limit it in a way.
It does see things limited. So for someone new, a good question we could ask ourselves: Am I coming from my conditioning, or am I coming from my true nature, like my childlike nature, right? My untarnished, unvarnished
Yes.
childlike nature, and then and like you said, feel into that in our body. If we're coming from our conditioning, one might, I can't speak for everyone, they might feel some kind of constriction or tension in the body or some stress. And when coming from our true nature, we might feel more open hearted, optimistic, unlimited, if you will.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what I wanted to add to this. uh, if anything feels unnatural to us in life, if we feel at any point in our life that we are limited in some way, if something doesn't um, go in life, we feel it really is supporting us, that we feel we want to really explore life, expand, but it doesn't seem to go. That's definitely some conditioning from the past.
That we feel that way
Because
about how
otherwise,
it, okay.
yes, yeah, yeah, if we feel
Okay.
that way, if something doesn't feel right, there is a reason for that.
Okay.
Otherwise, we would be exploring, experiencing this life with ease, with flow, with peace. We would just feel like literally happy and just having fun. And that's exactly what leads to the other aspect that you've mentioned, this seriousness is in life. So yeah, so you've mentioned the word, exploring. I always feel and invite everyone to become, if we don't feel like this in life, to become um, those uh, happy explorers, those wanting to explore life the way that feeling like if we were going to a playground, having fun, meeting with friends, and just exploring. Why children want to go to a playground? Because they
Right.
want to have
Yeah.
fun, they want to play, they want to explore. Those conscious, if we are conscious explorers, we want to really travel light. Yeah, this is what I feel uh, this life is about. Exploring this life, traveling traveling light. We don't want to really carry anything heavy, but just literally exploring this life. This life is really nothing more than just exploring. We wanted to come to explore, to experience certain aspects. And of course, by exploring, what I also mean that we can be active in life, we can do lots of things, we can express ourselves, but just being natural, uh, feeling light. And if we look at many people who share their experiences and generally share a lot in life, expressing themselves, they actually still feel that they want to play a certain aspect by simply being the way it really resonates with them.
Yeah.
That is possible only if we perceive our light from our true nature,
Mm.
not really responding from the limited self. So when we come uh, from the self, and what's coming, basically what we share, when it's coming from our true nature, from the self, uh, is what I mentioned before. We want to basically share. It's not something that is created because we need something. It's the way around. We want to share. And if we experience something that is at peace, that it's really, we feel it's freedom,
Yeah. That's beautiful.
it's light and love. We want to share. The happiness, it's always searching to share itself.
Yeah, for an avenue to be the
When
ripple effect, right?
when we feel that there is something not right, there is something limiting us. What you've mentioned at the beginning about the storm, do you feel like sharing, like going out in the world
No, you
and
actually want to
sharing? No,
isolate, and that's the opposite of what you need to
exactly,
do. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What needs to
exactly.
happen? Yeah, that's beautiful. So I found our next topic because it's part of this. Because you're talking about what resonates, and I just captured a few notes on that, and then dissonance. And then I feel like reaction and response tie into that, because for me, you're right. When I'm coming from the limited mind, I'm in reaction. But when I'm coming from the true nature, I'm in response. I can respond. So I love that you told us to
Right.
respond. And but it's important. A lot of us are not very tapped into our bodies and tuned into our bodies. So that would be a good thing to talk about, how we can do that in our next one, because otherwise sometimes we don't know what resonates or dissonant is dissonant. We can feel it, but we live so much in our minds. And so I'll just be transparent as we wrap up and say, I would say I lived the first, I don't know, I can't speak about when I was a child, a small child, because I love to play and I love to be outside in nature. So I can't imagine I was too heady. But at some point, I know I became very heady in my life. I was born into a very heady tribe. And, but as an adult, like you said, the isolation that it caused wasn't working for me. So thank goodness that isolation was a universal invitation to pop out of that. So that would be good too. And I've made some notes for that, so we can talk about that, because some people might not even be aware that we're not our mind and we're not our thoughts, kind of thing. So thank you
Absolutely.
so much for your time today. This was so good. I can't wait to hear everyone's feedback, or, like Kasia said, what more would you like us to talk about? But we thought this would be a really good way, because like, if we talk about chronic living more in harmony with our true nature, but maybe some of us weren't even aware what our true nature is, or, like, how to return to that childlike state, how to play more, how to be fun, how to have more fun. And lastly, I'll say this: I love that you said, at least this is how I heard it through my filter, life is a playground. And I was like, it all is. So we're not saying that the limited mind and the true nature, one is better than the other. They're just different. But, like, it's a playground, so we could explore all of it. We could be light about all of it. We could be light even when we're having
Right.
the mind storm. We could hold that lightly and be like, "Oh, I know what's happening. This is a storm," because we don't argue with the rain. We don't argue with the rainstorm. So there's no need to argue with
Yeah.
this, right? And we can just lightly choose. You know what? I really enjoy feeling expansive. I really enjoy more peace or whatever. So, like you said, how can I choose that? How can I get in touch with that? So again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alva. I really appreciate really connecting with you, co-creating this, and it would be really my joy uh, to share more. And yeah, those topics that you've suggested, I feel they're really great topics, and my intention is that it will be supportive. But as Alva mentioned, and as I've mentioned at the beginning, please do suggest also topics, ideas. And we are looking forward to your comments, to your feedback, because it would be wonderful to know, like, what else could be supportive, like what you really require at this
Yeah.
stage. So I'm so looking forward to connecting next
Yes,
time.
yes. And
So
lastly,
thank you for inviting
yeah.
me.
And lastly, I just wanted to add, if any term we use or anything we talk about, it doesn't make sense to you, we want to hear that as well. Like, if you want us to expand on that, because, like Kasia said, this is for all of us. This is, yeah, that's just what.
Absolutely. And let's say just maybe one more thing. The only words to describe, because the mind needs to get it somehow. Yeah. So however words we use, they're only just words, and they're also limited.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if, yeah, exactly, like Alva mentioned, if there is something how we described, please do share and we can expand on that. Yeah. Thank you so
Have a
much.
beautiful every day.
Thank
Bye, everyone.
thank you. Ciao, ciao.